In this video, I'm going to tell you guys the story of how I went from being dead broke at 22 as a fresh, almost college graduate to getting into sales and then leveraging all of the knowledge that I had into building one of the biggest sales, copywriting, and marketing communities and subscription courses in the world by the time I was 25. So I built a business that a lot of you might know called Cash Flow Syndicate. And that business at its peak was doing $120,000 a month in profit. But it took a lot in order for me to do that. And so we're going to skip back to a few years earlier. And so when I was 22 years old, I was just finishing college. I studied finance. I have a degree in finance. And I didn't really have a pot to piss in. I was dead broke. I left school and I went back to my mom's house and I had no clue what was going to happen in the future. I maybe had $20 to my name. I had basically no skills aside from me basically doing a short internship in sales and asset management and financial advisory and selling life insurance and things like that I did for one summer my junior year. And I had no idea what I was going to do. So I realized that I wanted to be in sales, and I knew that sales was going to be a route for me to build a very transferable skill set to do whatever it is that I wanted to do in life. And I realized if I could sell and I could sell well and I was good at it, then I would never, ever, ever be broke. And so I ended up having a friend of mine. He got one of my best friends. He got a job working at this company and he was selling loans, and he was making, at the time he told me he was making $3,000 to $4,000 a month, which I thought was going to be life-changing for me. And then I asked him basically, can he help me get set up with an interview? I applied and I got the interview, and they didn't know that I was a referral until they had basically already agreed to hire me. And what ended up happening was I got this sales job. I started a few weeks later, and that day that I did the interview, my friend showed me a pay stub for $10,000. And my mind was blown, and I was like, wow, this is going to change my life. And so I got this job, and I originally wasn't the best salesperson ever. I really sucked and I really struggled. And I worked 12, 13 hours a day, and I spent 9+ hours a day on the phone, anywhere from 7 to 9 hours a day pitching and selling deals and trying to get as good as possible. And I became absolutely obsessed with sales and learning how to do all of this stuff from the ground up. I was making 100-something cold calls a day. I was just in the office and I was grinding. And I did this for almost 2 years. At the peak, I peaked out at doing about $150,000 a year in gross pre-tax income. And I just was on Twitter back even before I did that. And I saw so many people on Twitter who knew a lot less than I did about sales, talking about how to sell and teaching and selling information and selling courses and building these businesses basically right in front of my eyes that were these hyper profitable businesses doing $20,000, $30,000 a month. And I remember thinking, like, if these people can do it, then I should probably be able to do this. And so a lot of people were running marketing agencies at the time. And I remember seeing this tweet talking about how to do email marketing for e-commerce companies and things like that. And so towards the back end of the sales job, I started a little marketing agency, and in December of 2020, I got my first client basically 24 hours after I had the idea to start the business. I leveraged a lot of connections that I had from being a fashion model and working in, doing stuff in the fashion industry and doing runway modeling and things like that. And that's how I got my first client. And I started building that business on the side while I was in my sales job, and did fairly well. I was making extra money, and I started to make more money from the things that I was doing on the side with the marketing agency, and I was doing some things with trading crypto and when DeFi was a thing. And the month before I quit, I made $32,500. And that was a combination of the money that I made from my sales job, from the agency, and from the crypto things that I was doing. And I realized that my time would have been better spent working on my own business instead of slaving away for 11, 12, 13 hours a day like I was doing at the sales job. And I ended up quitting on June 19th of 2021. And I decided that I had spent too much time watching other people do the things that I wanted to do for myself, and it was my turn to do those things for myself. And that's when I went all in. And that's when I decided to try my hand at being an entrepreneur and building my own business and trying my hand at the marketing agency and really going all in and just seeing what I could do. I ended up going to Europe for a few months. I traveled the world, and I remember thinking the entire time, what would my life look like if I had all the money in the world? What would my life look like if I could do whatever I wanted to do every single day? And I worked out how much it would cost at the level of lifestyle that I was living while I was in Europe, and I worked it out to be around 25, 30 grand a month. And for the first time in my life, I went from someone who I had never been out of America before. I was 24 years old when I quit, a few weeks after my birthday. And I had never been out of the country, and I traveled to, I think, 6, 7, or 8 countries. I went to Croatia, I went to Greece, I went to Czech. I went all over, like Italy. I went to so many different places, and I absolutely loved it. I lived on an island in Greece for a month, and I felt this freedom that I had never felt before in my entire life. I had about $100,000 to my name, and I basically spent half of my life savings on this trip, just riding ATVs on the island and partying and living in 5-star hotels and villas and beautiful places. And I had a lot of fun. And I figured out that that was what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I didn't want to have a boss. I didn't want to be beholden or shackled to any of the things that I was shackled to and beholden to before. I didn't want to have to listen to anyone. I wanted to wake up when I wanted to. I wanted to stay up as long as I wanted to. If I wanted to go somewhere on a Thursday afternoon, I could just pack a bag and go. And I really wanted the freedom that I got when I first went on that trip. And so I had started documenting my life and my travels and the things that I was doing and telling stories and things like that on Twitter. And I had gotten a few hundred followers. I think by the time I came back, I had like 500 followers, which was amazing for me because I was watching and watching and watching and consuming all this content for years and years and years and years. So I started building a marketing agency, and I realized on Twitter, after talking about sales and talking about my experience and my knowledge of closing deals and doing what it is that I was one of the best in the world at, that people really wanted to learn from me. And one night in Croatia, when my best friend got detained by the Russian military police when he was flying back to where he was living at the time, he had a connection flight through Moscow, he got detained as a spy. And obviously he wasn't a spy, but he had an American passport and he was in Moscow. And if you go to Moscow with an American passport and you're not invited, there's problems. So I ended up staying up all night. I was worried about my friend, of course. And I ended up watching a webinar, and this guy was talking about how he had built a recurring subscription business, or it was basically a monthly subscription model. And they had 2,000 members, and it was $50 a month, and it was only open for a few weeks at that point. And I ran the numbers, and I was like, wow, this guy's making 100 grand a month recurring. That's life-changing money. And even at my level now, that's life-changing money. It's amazing money. So what I ended up doing was I realized that I could take my knowledge that I was spending years developing and my skills that I spent years developing in sales and thousands and thousands and thousands of hours, and I could put it into a product. And so I tested a free course, and that course was called $40 Million Offers. It made a few $100 because it was an optional payment, and I think I had over 1,000 people sign up to it within the first day, which was amazing. And I realized I had something. And that eventually became Cash Flow Syndicate. And so the first day that that company, that business launched, I had 250 customers. And I remember after seeing the Stripe, the MRR thing on the Stripe, I was like, wow, like, this is amazing. Like, my rent's paid, my bills are paid. And it was dope. And within 13 months, that business ended up doing a lot. And by the October of that next year, I think it had hit. So it started in October of 2021, and then it hit, I think it was $65,000 or $75,000 in a month. And then it went from 65 to 90 to 100 to 100 something, and then it stayed doing that from there. And that was my first 7-figure business. And from basically being broke at 22, 2 years later, having like 100K to my name, with that business, I ended up turning what I was making in a year basically into my monthly income, which was awesome. And so I want you all to realize that most of the time, especially if you're in sales, if you're in marketing, if you're in any sort of corporate role, and you're getting a paycheck, you're making, let's say, $60,000, $70,000, $100,000 a year, that knowledge that you have, and you're getting paid based on what you're bringing into the company, and usually it's a multiple of 10 to 20x. So usually if you're in a sales role and you're making $100,000, $150,000 a year, you're bringing in anywhere from $3 to $5 million in revenue, which is great for the company. But as the sales rep or the employee, you feel stuck, because after taxes and after your living expenses, you really don't have that much left over, because inflation is outpacing everything, and cost of goods is getting even more expensive, and the grocery stores are basically committing highway robbery on people. And so if you're in one of these roles, you're getting paid a lot of money and you're bringing in a lot of money, whether you know it or not. And all that knowledge that you have is probably worth more than what your clients are paying you if you run a marketing agency, or it's worth more than you're making in your corporate role or your corporate sales job or high ticket sales or copywriting or freelancing or whatever you're doing. And your ability to synthesize all that knowledge and put it into a product is one of the coolest things that you can do, because you break free of the shackles that you've created for yourself with sales and corporate sales. And if you're an employee, or you're working a 9 to 5, or you're W-2'd, or you're 1099'd, or you're in marketing, or you're freelancing, or you're doing something for somebody else, all the knowledge that you have is worth more than what you're currently getting paid. And I'm a prime example of that. I was able to take that knowledge. I was able to build $1 million business within a little over a year. And a lot of these opportunities, sales, freelancing, marketing, whatever it is, agency, you create a job for yourself, because now you're not beholden to or shackled by the manager that you have or the boss that you have. You're shackled to your clients, and you need to make sure you're on top of client work, and you need to make sure that your deliverables are on point, and that you're doing the best possible job you can. You're responding to text messages at 2 a.m. if you have international clients, or you're always on the clock. You're always working. So when I made the switch from corporate sales to, I then did the agency, and the agency was successful, and we did very well for our clients. And then I made that transition into info, and I ran the agency, and I did the info stuff, and I built a very big business at 24, 25 years old. I had all the freedom that I ever wanted, that I was searching for when I was back traveling around Europe and doing whatever it is I wanted to do. And I wasn't beholden to anyone but myself. And I worked a few hours a month. I did calls. I responded to messages in the community that we had, and I updated content. I made the course content, and I had all the freedom I ever wanted. I made a lot of money, and it really showed me what true freedom looks like. And so my message to you is like, if you are in a position where you are feeling stuck, or you feel like you could be doing more, or you feel like you're underpaid and overworked, you probably should think about the fact that all the information inside your mind is worth way more than what you're currently getting paid for it. It's a different business model, but you're able to create leverage for yourself. You're not shackled to clients and responding to text messages or emails, or getting screamed at by clients when things don't go well, or getting screamed at by your boss, or being micromanaged or anything like that. And there are a lot of people in this world, and there are a lot of people who will buy from you in this world. And it's up to you to take it, because your knowledge is worth so much money. And you see this time and time again. You see people popping up left and right, making tons of money selling info products, paid communities, and all this stuff. And I had one of the biggest paid communities on planet Earth that made me a lot of money. And I realized that the information inside of my mind and my ability to teach this stuff and have people replicate the results in some way or another. I had guys that came through, they were delivering pizzas, they run $100,000 a month businesses now, or 18-year-olds, 100K a month. They're people doing 4K a month where they were doing zero before. They were working at a sandwich shop, or they were working at McDonald's or KFC. And that's worth so much money. Whatever it is that you have inside your brain, if you're in one of these roles, if you're in sales, like I said, if you're running an agency, if you're doing marketing, I want you to think about how much that knowledge is worth if someone paid you for it. And that is how I got rich, is taking the knowledge inside my mind and being an exceptional teacher and putting it out there and prioritizing the results that people would get. And obviously there's a ton of other stuff, dialing traffic, funnels, and learning all the internet marketing stuff. But I was able to do this, and I was able to get to like the business was doing like 10 grand a month in like the first month and a half. And I had no clue about internet marketing. I had no clue about funnels. I had no clue about email automations for info and things like that. Like I knew some things, and I put it together, and I started talking about it, and I started telling my story, and I started talking about what I was good at, and I built a product, and the product was incredible. And it defined an industry, and most of the people running paid communities and info guys now have either paid me for consulting or have worked with me in some way, or have copied some of the systems or some of the things or some of the terminology that I use and methodologies that I invented and I put out there and I pioneered. So it's a cool place to be in for me. But just looking back on how pivotal that transition was, from realizing that building a info business or a subscription business or a course community or coaching program or courses and that stuff, realizing how much leverage that created, it kind of made me realize that there's like no going back. And we still work with clients now. It's not as full-fledged in terms of like we're acquiring tons of clients all the time now, but now we have equity percentages and things like that. So just keep in mind that if you're stuck and you feel like there's no way out, start to think about how you can break free of the chains that you've created for yourself. You can break free of the 100K a year, because what's inside of your mind is probably worth a lot more than 100K a year. You can break free of the chains of working for somebody else, or being on this endless hamster wheel, this endless treadmill of working for someone else, of always trying to go and get the next client or get the next deal or make the next post. For the TikTok people who are making money on TikTok, like, you're beholden to the TikTok algorithm. If your stuff's not getting pushed in the algorithm, you're cooked. And so if you're able to build a sustainable information business, a sustainable course business, a sustainable community, recurring subscription, stuff like that, like, you're going to be good forever. And there is so much opportunity in the world, and all you have to do is figure out how to go out and get it for yourself. if you're stuck, think about how you can move forward. Think about truly what you want in your life, and if you want freedom, if you want financial freedom, if you need to provide for your family, and think about all of the things that you could be doing to make money. And if you're building an audience online and you're probably thinking about it or thinking about doing the whole personal branding thing, think about potentially putting a product on the end of it. I started Cashflow Syndicate. I think I had 17 or 1,800 followers or 2,000 followers. And I had a lot of people buy from me because I was just simply sharing my experience and my expertise. Information is not going away. Courses are not going away. We live in a time where information is rapidly changing. Techniques and systems and strategies are rapidly changing, but the only thing that doesn't change is human psychology, because we've been the same for the past 80,000 years. And if you're able to speak to the individual and you're able to speak to the person on the other side of the screen with content and the things that you're doing, it's almost inevitable that you make money. So that is the story of basically how I made a lot of money. I took all the knowledge that I had, I synthesized the information, I put it in an easy to follow program. Tons of people got results. And I was very good at it. And I built a juggernaut of a business. And I literally it was just a natural transition. I got into sales. I learned how to sell. I was one of the best at what I did. And then I started an agency. I learned how to do that. And I was very, very, very good at that. And then I just took all the knowledge that I had and I put it into a product, and then I sold that system. And I made it as easy to follow and as easy to replicate as possible. And even now with the new program, and if you're I'm not going to make this a big sales pitch because I want this video to be as value packed as possible. But if you're in one of these positions and you're looking to lever up and create leverage for yourself and pivot and break free of the chains and the shackles that, all these other opportunities are putting you in, whether you know it or not, click the link in my bio. It's courseguru.io, and talk to me or talk to the team, and we'll figure out how to get you sorted. Because the same way that I built that company from $0 to $1 million in 13 months is what you're going to learn inside the program. And if you're not ready to do it for yourself yet, you can use all this information. I know there's a lot of people who want to scale and grow info products and stuff like that, and they think that's a lane. You can take this stuff inside the course and inside the program, and you can implement it within a few hours and start making sales for your clients or start making sales for yourself, regardless of basically if you have like less than 500 followers, it might not work, but it might work. But if you do have a big following, or you're working with people that have a big following, you can just implement this stuff right away and you'll start making sales. But that being said, there are so many opportunities in this world, and there's so much freedom that you can have as an individual if you just simply focus on the right things. And if you focus on creating leverage in the opportunities that you have, if you focus on taking the knowledge that you have and putting it into a product, I guarantee you will have more leverage in your life and more freedom in your life than if you were to continue with a client service-based business, if you were to continue with a marketing agency, or really try to grow the agency to as much as you possibly can, because most of those people, they cap out at around 15 grand a month, and they end up just creating a job for themselves because they don't know the operations and hiring and management, and then their margins take a hit, and there's a ton of problems on the operational side. Or on the high ticket sales side, where you're beholden to being, you're beholden to the lead flow or the things that the owner or the offer owner is doing. And so I want to show you guys basically how to create your own offers and how to make money for yourself and how to create leverage and pivot out of whatever opportunity that you're in into a better opportunity for yourself, so that you can have the same freedom that I have, as cliche as that sounds, and make tons of money doing it. So that's my message to you. I was very much so where a lot of you guys are. I've been successful in tons of different businesses, stuff that I'm not going to talk about in this video. But information and selling info and courses, and when I did Cash Flow Syndicate, that really changed my life. And that was my first one that really popped. That was the first one that was just like, holy shit, this is real. And I know a lot of you guys probably question, like, is this whole internet business thing for me? Is it real? I built that business up to, I think, $20,000, $30,000 a month I was literally anonymous. Like, no one knew what I looked like. I had like 14,000, 15,000 followers and no one knew what I looked like. I think I doxed myself and I showed everyone what I looked like when I think I had 15K. So you can do it anonymously. You can do it, with your full face and everything like that. And there's so many different ways to do it, but it is absolutely possible, because this is the way that a lot of the guys now, and a lot of people, including myself, this is how we do it. And this is how we've created so much leverage for ourselves and so much freedom for ourselves that we can go and do whatever it is that we want to do. Because all we did was we took the information that we were getting paid for, that we were getting paid to learn or paid to do, and took that skill set that we built in a client-based business or in a sales role or in a marketing role or some corporate role, and then just synthesized that information, put it into a product, started talking about it, and then here we are. So I hope this message finds you well. Again, if you guys want to find out more about the program, I'm not going to make it a sales pitch, courseguru.io, link in bio. If not, show some love in the comments. Tell me what you think. But this is the story so far, and I'm excited to tell more.